Good afternoon and welcome to the Ask Weldon Show. Today it is the I Will Dominate show, the Ask I Will D show. I am here with my co-host, Dom, and we're going to be taking the same kind of questions that we normally take on the Ask Weldon show, but we're going to have a little bit of flavor and spice because we're going to have two different people answering them. If you don't know who I Will Dominate is, you can check out his Twitch channel. He's a very excellent jungler who plays and provides high-level gameplay and amazing analysis, I think, at least, amazing analysis, teaches while he plays, and entertains as well. Somebody asked me, actually, on my show yesterday, they said, what's the deal with Dom? Like, why does he have so many viewers? Because this was his view, of course, not mine. Yeah. He treats them like crap. And I was explaining that I couldn't really identify it either because I had on your stream for a number of hours, and I was just working away. Mm-hmm. And then I switched. I saw TSM Vis went live. And there's no shade to Vis, okay, because I love him. And I love PUBG. But I switched over and I was like, oh, cool, I'm going to check out some PUBG for a while. And I was watching his stream and I got bored after like 5 minutes. And that's not to say he doesn't entertain because he does a lot of cool stuff. He's like upgrading his production quality. He's doing the whole bike thing and the jumping thing. But when I went back, I think it's just something about like your chatter or the way that the stories you tell or the way that you leave everything. But it was like so easy to just listen and work and be entertained. So do you have any insight as to why it is that your stream has like
it depends on like how much you watch me. I feel like I'm somebody who normally a lot of viewers warm up to me over the time they watch me because I have this negative perception in the community. It's like I was ever since I was banned in season 2, the community perception's always been negative, right? You can't get banned.
Sven Skaren was able to shake that after getting kicked out of Worlds for racism, but you have never been able to shake that as a?
I think it's just because he's less visible, but then it's also
he's less out there, right?
It's also like it was a much. He didn't get the punishment I got, right? Like his punishment was like 3 games from Worlds. My punishment was 2 entire splits, right?
Insane.
So it's like, so to the common viewer that doesn't understand how like Riot backed off some of their policies, etc., they're going to be like, damn, he must have been so toxic to get banned for that long, And then it's also just the way that I guess I come off. If people watch me for a while, they'll understand like my personality, and they'll understand that I'm not the type of person that I'm gonna just say things differently to be super politically correct. Like I'm just gonna say what I think, and if I'm frustrated, I don't mind showing that I'm frustrated and things like that. So a lot of people that end up watching me, they come back because they're like, oh, this guy's like actually like pretty good, and what he says actually makes sense. If you break down the arguments that I'm making, it's not like I'm saying ridiculous things. I mean, I think that's the number one thing that I see is, if I really was falsely blaming everyone all the time, I would be like the Hishinshin on Reddit, where there would be all these clips of me blaming people where it didn't make sense, and then people proving that what I was saying don't make sense. It's not
right.
that.
It'd be a drama stream or something.
Yeah, it'd be different. So I mean, I think that there's 2 things. I think that I honestly do believe I think I'm one of the better solo queue junglers on the server, just based off like rating. I think that I just play better than a lot of people, and then I guess it's just commentary and just being able to talk while playing is just something that it's hard to do. I mean, and it definitely takes away from your performance when you're thinking about like when you're reading chat. Oh, I got to respond to this donation. Oh, I want to be funny about this. Oh, I need to like comment on this thing, or like you see a bad play. How do I want to go with this? Do I want to like flame him? Do I want to like joke around with it? Like you have like all these things in your head.
What formula should I use today for this?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, for those of you who don't know, this show is a call-in show. You can go to anchor.fm/Weldon Green. It's not sponsored or anything. It's just a really, really useful podcast app that lets you do audio call-ins. And so you can go get the app, you can download it, you can listen to the podcast there too, and then you can call in questions. And so the next 4 questions we're going to hear are from the Anchor app. You can call in yourself, anchor.fm/Weldon Green. And of course, everybody who's watching this live on Twitch right now, twitch.tv/MyName'sWeldon, you can tune into the live show and not just watch it on YouTube, as this is also the YouTube version as well. So the first question here is from a gentleman named Love, and it's basically about how to not flame teammates. And there's nothing really special about this question. I get it a lot, but this guy asks really good questions, and this is the most well-put version of this question that I've ever been asked. And so I thought we should just open with it.
Hey, Weldon, it's been a while. It's Love. How you doing? I just want to ask you something. Basically, I've been playing a lot of games lately. I've been playing about 10 to 20 games a day, and I've been going on really good winning streaks. My last winning streak was about 8 or 9. The problem that I'm having is now, though, is I'm on the buys. I had a 4-game loss streak, and the problem I'm having is I have a lot of teammates who do things wrong. I've been playing AD carry lately, and like last game I had a Nami who didn't build any support items. She built a Luden's Echo. She built a Marillanomicon, stuff like that. And I had a Yas in the game before that who had a lead, but instead of just pressing his lead and winning us the game, he started trying to go in 1v5 every 2 seconds. How do I not flame people? Like, how do I not get angry about that? How do I improve my gameplay and not worry about theirs? Thanks, Weldon.
So I think that his definition of what flame is really hilarious, and then he actually is aspiring to be better, right? So this is something I see a lot on your stream, and I thought you might have some insight for him.
I mean, it just depends on how much you actually want to win. I mean, it comes down to how much you actually want to win, and like whether it's worth like feeling bad to win, because it having people like do dumb shit and watching them feed continuously, it's frustrating, right? Like it's super frustrating to just deal with that and internalize it. And it feels good to at least get some of that off your chest. But if you're not able to just like suppress that and be like, okay, I'm just going to keep on playing to win, then you can never hit Challenger. Like at some point to hit Challenger, you need to just be able to suppress that and just play the game and just view it as, instead of viewing it like, holy shit, that was so fucking stupid that he died, be like, okay, Yasuo died, what's next? Like, okay, now there's like a different situation, what's next? And I mean, it's different in different situations.
I really love this answer because it lines up perfectly with what we know from sports psychology. And you might be thinking, wait, is it really like a sports psychology trainer telling me to suppress my emotions? Aren't you supposed to, Freudian, like let your emotions out, like don't bury them and stuff like that? But the real answer is, it's dependent on your ambition. What is your ambition? If your ambition, which is to win the game, is stronger than your desire to satiate your emotions, then you will, instead of being driven by your emotions into an action, such as to like lash out or to express to that person what it is that you want to say to feel better, then instead you will tell them what they need to hear in order for you to win the game. So like that could be the hardest thing in the world, to tell a Nami, hey, come over here, we can help one-shot this guy, instead of why the heck are you building DPS items? But one of those you're saying for your own benefit, to satiate your own emotions, and one of those you're saying because you actually want to do anything you can to increase the probability of winning the game. And that's straightforwardly correct. Exactly what...
It's about how much you care. Like, you can ask any of the teammates I ever played with, never during a game at LCS was I ever like, why'd you do that? What are you doing? Like any of that. Like, I mean, it just depends on how much you care. And when I've done really well in solo queue, hit rank 1 before, I was in the mentality of like, okay, I'm just going to play to win, like no matter what. Yeah, it just depends on your mindset. Like now for me in solo queue, I don't really care that much if I win or lose. And if I think that flaming somebody can be, at all positive, like people will think it was funny, or I can make a joke of it, something like that, or this is actually like bothering me, I would rather just satiate my emotions on stream than actually play to only win. Like I don't play on stream to only win, because to begin with, if my mindset was to only win, then I wouldn't be playing half the champions that I'm playing anyway. So it's just two different mindsets. If you only care about winning, you'll play your best champions every game. You're going to pick the things that make sense in every situation, and you're going to just play every game just situation to situation and not really care about like what happens in between those moments. If like somebody dies or somebody gets picked off, whatever. But yeah, I mean, you just have to make a conscious effort.
The best story I heard about this, or the best story that I can share about this, because I can't really talk about a lot of the work that I do with players. Obviously, it falls under kind of like client privilege. But whenever I have a really good story, I ask that player if I can share it and get permission from them. And one of the players that gave me permission was Dardoch. I was working with Team Liquid, and I noticed that he was saying some things to Lorlo that weren't necessarily productive towards winning the game.
I've heard all those.
And
Sam, do you have eyes, buddy? Do you have eyes, Sam? I remember that one.
And I was like, listen, Dardoch, I know that some of these things that you're saying are to satiate your own emotional state and are not productive to winning the game. Well, first I asked him, what do you want? He's like, well, I want to win. And I was like, well, how badly? He was like, more than anything. And I was like, prove it to me. Because here's the list of things that you could say. Like now I know Sam really well. And here's a list of things you could say that are productive towards winning the game to these mistakes that he's making. Or to your, or how you can see your mistakes in relation to his as well. Here's a list of things that you are saying right now that are not productive. They're not useful for winning the game. They're just satiating your own emotions. And the very next, not just game, but entire scrim block, I would see in his eyes and his face and his body, the thing would happen, right? Lorlo would do something, and then like his entire body would go through this massive war, and then he would win, and he would suppress and fight the urge to do this, and out of his voice would come these very leadership style things, and despite the fact that we had this conversation in the open, and Sam knew what was going on, and he knew what was coming, they actually had an impact. They actually worked, even though they were kind of like false, if you know what I mean. They weren't well intentioned, but they functioned in the way they were supposed to function. That's basically how it works. That's what it is, from all the way from solo queue all the way up to pro play. What is your ambition? Do you know what the correct behavior is? Can you figure it out? And if so, can you do that instead of whatever you feel like doing? All right, next question. And this one is from a gentleman by the name of Greg.
Hi, Weldon. My name's Greg. I'm wondering, does flaming have any place in competitive League of Legends? Is it a legit strategy to try to get inside the head of your opponent and force them to tilt? Or is it better to take the high road, focus on getting better, and utilize the skills that really matter? Thanks. Have a great day.
So this is basically about psychological warfare. What are your thoughts? Did you ever use it when you were in the LCS? And
I think the only time I ever talked bad about a player was like publicly was I was like streaming against, or I was streaming with Bjergsen. So I was like playing with Bjergsen, and we were playing against like Smithy, and he like had a game where he popped off in a way. It was just like a solo queue pop off, you know, where I was like, this is just disgusting, right? And I remember I was like, damn, Smithy sucks. And I had just like played against him, but to me, it was never psychological warfare. It was just, that's actually how I felt at the time. And I was just like honest with how I felt, regardless, because I normally like taper things. Like I was never one of the people in interviews that, you know, shit on the enemy after I won. I was, yeah, I mean, we had like a good game and this was our strategy, and I'm happy that like this happened. Like that was my mentality towards taking interviews and stuff, because I just didn't want to be seen in that way at that time. But if I ever flamed people to my team, like I was like, oh, this guy's bad, like we'll win because of this. It was a way for me of putting pressure on myself to perform better. Like that's how I viewed it, instead of trying to like get inside their head, because I never did it directly to them. I would just be like, yeah, and like to my team, like, yeah, I'm gonna like on this guy. Like just if we just don't die in lanes for the first 5 minutes, the game is like over. I'll just like be able to take over the entire game, because he doesn't know about how to do this, this, and this, and his weaknesses are
so
whatever they
you're talking about
be.
Positively psychologically building up your team, and not psychologically trying to destroy the enemy with lack of confidence before.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember ever before a game being, I don't think that you'll ever find like a tweet like, oh yeah, we're gonna on these guys on the weekend.
Did anybody ever try to get into your head? Conversely?
Like that?
Yeah. Or succeed? Where you went into the game with a chip on your shoulder, an agenda, because of stuff people were saying on social media?
I mean, I think that it felt really good beating CLG in like 2014 and 2015, because like Doublelift was like super confident. I could tell that he just thought that we were just terrible. Like, he would say it publicly. We'd be like, yeah, Curse is a terrible team, and like he wasn't wrong about us being terrible. What he didn't understand was that they weren't as good as he thought they were either.
They were also bad, yeah.
Yeah, they're also bad, right? So it's like you're calling us terrible, but you're also terrible. At least at the time, I didn't think that Doublelift was like very like strong-minded in game. It felt like if one thing went wrong or they lost one game, it was like over. That's why we 3-0'd them both times. Like we would always have our very first close game. Like the first game would be really, really intense and really close, and then we'd win that game, and then the next two games would just be stomps, like 20 minutes, like over. You know, we're out of this. Like the matches start at 12. We're out of the studio by like 2:30. Like, hell, where do you guys want to go get lunch?
Lunch.
Yeah, pretty much.
Not even dinner. Man, that's an early defeat. I mean, that's a hallmark of a team where the players don't get along, is like if they lose, it fractures. Teams that win together, or teams that win, can usually manage to win together, even if they don't have good cohesion. Teams that lose and they don't have good cohesion, they lose apart instead of losing together. Teams with really good cohesion, they lose into each other, and then they can like pull things out, right? And yeah, I mean, I think that's very evidenced by the fact that at the end of 2015, despite the fact that they just won, you know, their first season, the team just fractured to pieces, right? I mean, like Peter, Pobelter, and didn't they lose another player too? No.
Nope.
That was Smithy left later. That's right. They replaced him later. Yeah. All right. But yeah. Anyway. Okay. So no experience with that. My answer, I think that I answered about this before, was I'm not really sure that I've seen very many people use it, but I'm a no holds barred kind of guy. So I wouldn't disapprove of it in any way. I just don't think that people need it if they're good. And so if they accidentally do it by chance, like it's more of a brand building thing.
I guess one last thing that I'll add is I never thought that like in LCS that I would ever gain an advantage by like, if anything, I thought that I could make somebody play better by antagonizing like that. Them like that. Like I never thought that anyone was so weak-minded where I was like, damn, if I just tell this person that they're before the game, then they have no chance, you know? Like I always was like, I was like, damn, like I just want to just, you know, come in on like good like, hey dude, we're just here to play the game, and then I'm just like gonna go hard in the game. That's how I viewed it. So
what do you think about Julius? Do you think that's possible against him? To just retweet all his old tweets before you go into his playoff match or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I think for him, like the problem with Gilius is that he just like he's not skilled, right? Like he's not actually good at League. So for him, he needs to try to gain some advantage somewhere else, because if he just plays his game, then there's no chance, right? So I think that just comes from like him like being honest with himself. Like I'm sure that at this point he knows that he's a bad player. He has to know it. It's just like based off the results. There's no way that you can still just be confident actually and be like, oh yeah, I've just been unlucky and my teams have been terrible. Like he played with like rookie of the split, like Mini Trupax had like a good split. His whole team looked good. He was the only one that looked bad, right? So I think
he's mentioned that he did all that stuff with full awareness. So it seemed like very calculated to me.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that for him, it's the type of thing of like, I know where my skill cap is. I'll never like break that, like in terms of just pure play. But maybe if I can make other people play worse, then I can beat them. Like that type of mentality.
Third question is about switching roles for the purposes of mental self-satisfaction. And actually somebody asked you why you still play jungle when it's really bad in your previous stream. So this might be relevant, but it is from an e-girl.
Mm-hmm. An e-girl? Damn, you're going to get flack for that.
Hi Weldon, I'm a female gamer who plays support in mains champions like Nami and Janna, and I want to feel proud of how much I improve at the game, but sometimes it's hard when so many of the people I encounter tease me for being the typical e-girl support player and put me down for playing the easy role. And I want to continue maining support, but sometimes people's comments can get to me, even to the point where I think about switching roles just to get more respect. So do you have any advice for me and potentially other female players in similar situations?
So I think
Thank you.
The crux of this question is, would you switch roles for more respect? And is support an easier role? And is she getting flack for good reason?
Like some things about it are easier, but in terms of winning consistently, I mean, you don't see like any Janna players at the top of the ladder, right? Like there's no, like, you don't look at the top 10 like, oh my God, it's all these Janna players, because eventually you're going to actually need to carry the games in higher ELO. And Janna and Soraka and Nami, like those types of champions, it's really just helping your team succeed. So if your team doesn't have the base skill to like be able to exploit the advantages of those champions, then you're just essentially wasting your time. So it's kind of like limiting. Like it's easier. It's a higher floor, lower ceiling type thing.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Where you're able to maybe be higher ranked than you would be like normally. Like let's say somebody who got to Diamond 5 only playing like Janna and Nami, if they were to play like things like Thresh and Alistar, maybe they would only be like Plat 3 or Plat 4, maybe even like Gold 1 or something. But those same players, they're not going to be able to hit the top ranks of Challenger, because eventually the way the MMR works, especially in NA where you're going to have games that are so like drastically different in terms of skill level, you're going to be in games where you're like a 500 point like when I'm 500 LP Challenger, if I queue up in the morning, I'm going to get Diamond 4s and Diamond 5s on my team, and I'm going to be versus all Diamond 1 and Master players, and I'm going to need to completely carry the game if like all three lanes are going to lose every single game, guaranteed, just based off like the MMR difference. Like if one lane wins, it will be like a fucking miracle, right? So like you're going to have to hard carry from those positions, and you're going to have to play champions that hard carry, which is kind of why myself, I don't like playing at that time, because the champions that are really good right now in the jungle, and the champions that I think I'm really good at, like Olaf, Skarner, and Trundle, like those types of like bruisers, are just not going to be able to like 1v9 a game. Like they're just going to end up, you can do things, you can get picks, you have potential to get leads, but those leads are not going to be big enough to overcome the amount of deficit that's going to be built up from just laning. So, I mean, in terms of that, I think that everything's fine. But the other part of the question is like, she feels bad because she's a girl.
Well, I mean, judging by what you said, it seems like she should, if she wants more respect and to carry, then she should switch to a carry, or play a support that's going to carry, like Braum, where like your engage is, or Alistar, where like you carry the fight or you don't. Like Alistair's like, you go in and you either go in at the right time or you look like a goon. And if you're overexposed and you get caught out in the river, like you die. It's not like Janna where you just like run away and you can ult and you can flash and you can Q and you can W and all sort of stuff. Like it abuses what you can do right and what you can't. And
so I guess it's just like the question here is what's worth more to her, winning or respect from like random people online that are probably like way worse than her at the game, right? And if she wants to win, if her number one thing, and for me, like I do play for respect a decent amount of time. That's why I have all these smurfs where I just play these terrible champions, is because like people will respect you more if you play like a bad champion in Diamond 2 but do well. People will respect you more than if you play a challenger game versus like the best players like in NA in solo queue, but you play like a resident sleeper champion. You play Skarner, you play Olaf. It's like, oh my god, this guy's a meta slave. Like people will always just be negative about that. So I mean, she probably knows that her best chance to win is on Janna and Nami, and she wants to win, and that's what she's doing. And does she want to win?
It's whether she's doing escapism for the joy and the satisfaction of victory, or whether she is doing it for her. I mean, it's just whatever your motivation is.
Yeah, that's how I see it.
Same as the very first question we had about ambition. Like, if you have your ambition, just follow it. Just decide which one is stronger, and then don't worry about the other situation. All right, last question, and then we're done with the show. We get to jump back into Twitch chat for more questions. But this one is from a gentleman named Scott, and it's about performance enhancing drugs in esport.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Weldon.
Adderall
my
or
name's
something,
Scott
right?
Stevens. My question is about performance
Just
enhancing
general.
drugs in esports. Do you think there are any that should be tested for? And do you think Adderall is being abused? And do you think it could give somebody an unfair advantage? Thanks.
All right, so I took this question, even though I get it a number of different ways, because he asked, can these be abused? And I couldn't really answer that, because I think yes, but I've never been on stage, and I've never been a pro player in that regard. So I'm not really sure what your opinion is on if you saw... And I've interviewed CSGO players, specifically for an article that I did about performance enhancing drugs in CSGO, and CS Source, actually. And this was years ago, and it was rampant there. But I personally have never seen it in League of Legends. And so I was curious, like, have you seen the use of these, and do you think that modafinil and Adderall would give you an advantage?
So I can actually answer this question completely, because I have done Adderall and played League. And I'm not prescribed or anything, but in college, when I first started, I don't know how it is in other places. At University of Miami, there's a huge problem with Adderall. Essentially, the way people do things is they party a fuck ton like on weekends, and then right before like their testing period, they'll just take Adderall, and it just will give you like the supreme focus for like 10, 15 hours, and you can really grind things out in a day. Yeah, so it's like essentially a study drug. So I have taken Adderall like probably like 4 or 5 times for that, and then I've tried it once. I tried playing a League game before I studied one of those times, and what I realized is it's definitely good in terms of mechanics. Like, you're really on point in terms of how fast you can move, how fast you can react to things. Just if everyone's on the screen at the same time, you'll be really conscious of everyone's abilities, and you'll just kind of perform at a superhuman level in that regard. But your map awareness is just absolutely nothing. You cannot focus on multiple different things at like the same time. Like, you're not realizing, oh, this guy's roaming from bot. Oh, like they have like TP. Like, all the macro scale things are just so hard to focus on, because you're so all your focus is just on your mechanics and like how you're kiting out a buff and like all this stuff. So for me, I think it's not good for League, personally. Like, I've tried playing League on Adderall, and the way that I felt was like I had no clue what was going on. It just felt like foggy. Like, trying to just think about normal things. Does this guy have TP or not? Or like, is this guy roaming or not? It would just like, you just like lose track of things. Your awareness of all that stuff is so much lower. And in general, I think that in League of Legends, it's more important to be conscious of all the possible outcomes and have like good macro sense for the game than to just be like some mechanical beast.
Have you ever done modafinil and played? Because I think modafinil is functioned a little bit different than Adderall. I think it might actually offer a little bit more clarity. But what you're saying sounds really interesting, because it is that it's like almost too much focus, right? It like draws your focus so in on what's happening that you actually can't then calculate for all these extra variables that you would normally track, which in actuality means you need to widen your focus. That's really fascinating. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just gonna say, like, my last point was, that's why I think that it would be better in a game like CS:GO, and why it was so rampant there is there
There's
is
no
like a
teleport.
macro game. Yeah, there is a macro game, but if you have the advantage of you're just going to win the fight, you're going to just shoot the guy in the head quicker than he's going to shoot you. That's worth more than like having this like, global sense for where everyone is on the map in a game like that.
Yeah, I think in League of Legends, my theory was that it would always benefit in training far more than on stage. That if people are going to abuse PEDs, what they're going to do is they're going to scrim for like 6 hours, be exhausted, and then they're going to take an Adderall or modafinil or something instead of caffeine, and they're going to scrim for like another 3 hours, and they're going to have like more effective scrims and more effective learning because they have better attention than they should, because they should be tired and they're not. And then that'll play out like on a season level if they're abusing it consistently, because their learning rate is going to be higher. But then somebody else might still be better at the game than them if they just, are a better player. It seems hard to abuse in a way that would be effective. And then Daddy Riot it's terrifying, I think, in League of Legends, because the grapevine is so thin. People find out everything that everybody's doing in League. And if Riot finds out, that's it. They're just going to be like, we don't want you in our ecosystem anymore, and they control everything. So it's way riskier in League of Legends than it would ever be in CSGO. Even though there's drug testing now in CSGO, in the League there's none. I don't know that people are willing to risk it for the fact that they don't feel like it might bring that much advantage.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's the show for you today. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And by the way, I'm just talking to the YouTube audience right here. Twitch, don't leave right now. We're about to come back to you. If you want to join us on these live shows, every single day, 6:30 p.m. Los Angeles time. I don't know what time that is in New York. Apologies.
9:30.
9:30 p.m. New York time. And you can call in your questions at anchor.fm/Weldon Green. And you can check out the live show with the pre and post show after this recording at twitch.tv/MindGamesWeldon.